what we're going to talk about is green business as a tool for social change, and how do you use what you're passionate about to both pay the bills but serve a greater mission. And just to get a sense, is anybody here running a green business, like maybe vendors or something? Excellent. Anybody have an idea for a business they're throwing around? Good, good. Anybody going maybe to a job on Monday that is totally different than this weekend, that their heart isn't in but is providing a paycheck? Excellent. Okay, good. That's what we're going to really be talking about, is how can you blend what you're passionate about, what drew you to this energy fair, what prompts your green mission, your earth mission, and how can you make that be a part of your life? And we'll share some of our personal stories in there as well. And on that personal note, we are on a farm about 3 hours due east of here in Serendipity, where we run a bed and breakfast, and we write on these issues and raise our son and do a whole lot of things, a little mini eco zip code, if you will. We run our farm on renewable energy. And through the bed and breakfast, we've probably served over 1,000 breakfasts over the last 12 years since we've been open. And I've kind of come to this conclusion that everybody who comes through our door reminds me of food. And for those of you guys who were at my organic eating on a dime presentation this morning, food's a real passion of ours. So that said, types of people. We have our carrots. Maybe you guys recognize some of these. They travel in bunches. They're kind of tall. They know what's going on. They're very straight, very narrow, and they prescribe things that we need to do. They've got strong opinions. We have the eggs. Eggs are really tough on the outside, hard shell, but you crack it a little, and they're real gooey, mushy, don't really know what's kind of going on. And then we have coffee, little beans kind of sticking together in a jar, not too interesting perhaps, but they hang out together. But the key I've learned with food and with people is what happens when we experience some tough times, what happens when adversity hits, when things change, when the environment starts changing, and we really need to do something about it. So basically what happens if we add hot water to the mix? Any reference to global warming? Feel free, feel free. All right, so we add the water in there, and then what happens? Well, we cooked our carrot, right? What happens to carrots once they hit hot water? They mush, they fall apart. These things that were strong in opinions and had the right answer to everything, all of a sudden, when true chaos hits, their theories don't work anymore. They fall apart. They turn to mush. And then we have the eggs. All right, they were hard on the outside, mushy on the inside before. Right now, they cook. What are they? They're mushy on the outside, hard on the inside. They totally changed. Sort of, whichever way the wind's blowing, whichever way the TV show's going, whichever way the polls are going, they change based on the situation. But nothing's really happening. But then we have those coffee beans, right? And what happens to coffee when it hits hot water? They change the situation. They take the hot situation, they take that hot water, and they make it into something better. In my opinion, something really good. And that's our theory on ECOpreneuring and our personal theory on life, and something I think we all share as kindred spirits at the fair. How can we change the situation? How can we be coffee and be those beans and look at the world today, see things with opportunity, work together, little beans, and come out with something even better? And that's what we're going to share with you guys in our brief time here together, is some ideas on some of these trends, some of these issues, and hopefully leave all of us with some seeds of inspiration to take back, to start thinking differently perhaps about our livelihood, our life, and our daily routines here. So on that note, what we're going to do specifically is John's going to talk a little bit about the climate for change, these big issues we're talking about, but looking at them really as a sense of opportunity. How can we look at these trends and create businesses, create livelihoods that support us, but also support the planet, these changing trends? Then we're going to go through some 10 ECOpreneuring tips that I think are on that handout there, some different perspectives, nuggets of ideas to take home with you, and end with some resources. So John's going to kick things off. He promised me he's going to sum up the doom and gloom of the world in one slide. So let's see it.
We have problems. As most of you folks know, we're actually experiencing this precipitous weather today as a result of, I think, the end result of a hurricane that passed through. We're going to get this in about 3 or 4 days from the one that's currently pulling into the Gulf. We have climate change, we have ecological collapse, we have peak oil, and we have this wonderful debt-based economy that we've been living in now for some time, and all of a sudden, guess what? It's coming due, and we're experiencing all sorts of issues, whether it's at the gas pump or whether it's trying to hang on to the ownership of our own home as a result of this economy that we've gotten involved with. We're really looking at reframing all of this now from the standpoint of being ecopreneurs and living in a restoration economy and being a part of a 21st century of small, localized, and very much focused on the sense of preserving the environment and our social fabric of our communities as a part of how we operate in the economy and we work in. And using business really as that catalyst for change to help make these kind of things happen. And for our standpoint, we really don't differentiate between for-profit and nonprofit. So if we ask the question of hands in the audience of nonprofit, it really doesn't make any difference because both are businesses. And you'll see a lot of nonprofits out in the exhibitor area, and you'll see a lot of for-profit businesses. They're all serving a mission. And that mission, in one way or another, is to address social issues or environmental or ecological issues, and sometimes both. And what's happening actually in the business world is and nonprofit world is you're seeing that actually hybridize to become B corporations, not S corporations or C corporations, but B for benefit corporations. And they're structuring themselves in various ways. We actually have 8 different ecopreneur profiles in ECOpreneuring. Our book addressing, 3 of them are actually hybrid organizations that have for-profit and nonprofit sectors. So it's really looking at that. And it's really redefining free enterprise to mean that every one of you folks out there don't have to go to Walmart or some other large corporation to meet all of your needs. That we have the ability right now in partnering with other like-minded organizations and people and organizations to really change the way we do business, and we all can be enterprising. And that's really the thrust of what we've come from, living in a corporate cubicle world into the environment we're in now. And the reality is there's a lot of folks like ourselves, an amazing number, in fact. 1 out of every 4 of the American workers are a free agent in various ways. So it's a huge amount. That's 33 million Americans that are in various ways working for themselves or working in a small business entity. There's 23 million micro enterprises, and that's 87% of all businesses with 5 or fewer employees. So this is a very large entity. It's not what we're hearing about. The politicians right now are talking all about jobs, but the reality is we need entrepreneurial spirit to become restored in its a fundamental fabric of what has made America what it is. And we need to get back to that sense of running your own business. 75% of all businesses have only one person. You might know them. They're the artists, the craft people. People might help you build or fix up something in your house. These folks basically don't even have payroll oftentimes. What's nice is the U.S. Census Bureau, and in some cases the IRS, aren't even paying attention to us. And that's amazing when no one's paying attention to you, what you can do. And that's what our book's a little bit about, is if these millionaires get all this money and they keep making more money, it's tapping into the structures that are established for us and using those to power what we call our Earth mission. And I'll get to that in a second. If anyone thinks our free market global economy is working, I don't know what they're looking at. 5% of the world's resources uses 25% of the planet's resources. 5% of the people use 25% of the resources, produce 45% of the waste, and America has this proud distinction of housing 25% of the planet's prison population. And I could go on. There's lots of other relationships here that should give us some signals that the free market global economy is not sustainable. It's not working. And yet we just say, well, Russia collapsed, and therefore the communist system collapsed, and therefore ours is the best. And the reality is we're now getting the sense that it's not. We have federal government constantly bailing out huge multinational corporations, huge businesses. They're trying to just stop the bleeding right now. And it could get a whole lot worse. So we're all about trying to take control over that and control what you can. And you can do it oftentimes the best by running your own business. We've kind of been told that selling for less is better. We have a very different proposition where fair trade is our mantra, not free trade. It's respecting other people, other cultures, respecting the environment, and we embed that right into how we run our business. And guess what? There's a lot of people, 55 million people maybe, really like to shop with their values, but not that it's buying for less. There's people like out at these exhibit booths here that are trying to do right by the environment or by their community or by other countries, other cultures in other parts of the world, not to exploit them, but partner with them and work with them and help them grow economically and also preserve the environment at the same time. So this new sense of value is really emerging. The others, for the few of you that still work at a job somewhere, you realize you have almost no control over just about anything. And when we worked at a large ad agency, we couldn't even couldn't even decide when we could go out to eat or when we could take a holiday. We had to put in 6 months in advance if we wanted to spend a whopping week somewhere. You have very little control. And also, when you're working for a company with a payroll and a paycheck, there's lots of things that are automatically deducted from your paycheck before you ever see it. When you work for yourself, you can control that. You can decide how much payroll you want to have or what kind of rental income you want to have. Guess what? A lot of the wealthiest people don't have much payroll. Anyone know how much Steve Jobs is making? $1. That's how much he pays himself. This is the guy that, Apple computer, $1. Why does he not need payroll? Well, he doesn't want payroll. Payroll is bad. Payroll you have to pay taxes on. You could do all sorts of things that oftentimes are not taught in business school. And I went to business school, and the reality is a lot of what we're writing about and a lot of what we're doing now was never taught to me in business school because they were teaching me how to get a job in a large corporation like Procter & Gamble and go happily ever after in the suburbs. So the reality is we've really looked at that differently. And when you're working for someone else in a payroll type job, oftentimes it creates this sense of stress and your inability to control things. So by working for yourself in your own enterprise, you can regain that in various ways. And we'll touch on some things a little bit later on. But the reality is you're working hard for someone else, for someone else's dreams, or for someone else's profit or benefit. And that is really where we saw that we had a problem. Is we really couldn't control that unless we started to do things for ourselves. And it's a part of this broader restoration economy that we're a part of right now. And anyone in Iowa knows all about the restoration economy. There's a lot of people that are rebuilding here. There's a lot of people in the Gulf Coast that are going to be rebuilding. There's a lot of people in California that are rebuilding. There's a lot of healing that needs to go on. And the green business idea is really going to be very, very instrumental in putting the pieces back together and hopefully, perhaps like it's going on in Kansas right now, rebuilding entire communities that are eco-minded from the get-go. So they think about passive orientation and renewable energy and so forth. But we're taking that availability of resources and trying to turn it from an unsustainable society into a sustainable society by being smarter and wiser in how we use resources. And look at our demand. And this is, unfortunately, what no one in the political arena wants to talk about, is that maybe our lifestyle is negotiable. And in fact, maybe nature is negotiating it for us. And we're talking about creating an enterprise that acknowledges that and then figures out how to prosper under that renegotiated environment that we're now living in. How do you do that? How do you actually have and achieve a certain sense of quality of life through that whole process? And it really comes down to operating a business or an enterprise with a triple bottom line. And by that I mean planet, people, and some profits. And for those who know what permaculture is and that sense of design in your gardens, you know about sharing the abundance. Find a corporation sharing the abundance in a true way, and I will eat my hat. And because most of them are sharing a small percentage of the record profits they're actually getting. They do need to do a whole lot more than just donate a few cases of water like Walmart's doing to those poor people that are suffering the hurricanes. Walmart needs to step up to the plate because guess what? Walmart is shipping their stuff halfway around the world so that we can buy it for less here. They've changed the economics. They used to be buying American. They're not that anymore. How do businesses rethink things, trying to localize? And localization is a big part of that sense of community and people. And we really look at customers, workers, vendors, even investors can all be a part of that side. But it's the three sides that really make it work. And the other aspect is thriving in this honeybee economy, where we operate on renewable energy, not scarce fossil fuels. And that's sort of a theme here at this energy fair, is how do we get back to that renewable energy side of it. Bees thrive on nectar and honey. They have natural interdependencies, so much so, in fact, that not only do they help the flower population do what they're supposed to be doing, and they produce about a pound of honey for us humans to enjoy. 1/3 of our diet is now based on crops pollinated by bees, and if most of you folks know, we have a colony collapse disorder thing going on, and no one really knows, despite all the real smart scientists, what exactly is causing this. And it could be a combination of things. But the point is there's all these natural interdependencies, and we as ecopreneurs really try to weave these in together. They're very industrious and efficient, but they're decentralized, as opposed to the global capitalistic system where you have centralization and you have distribution centers. Very different approach to things. It's having all of our food needs in a community met by people in that community, that's growing the food. It's a very simple idea, and we love this restaurant we ate at last night, Rudy's. Great. I mean, almost more than half that menu came within a very immediate area. And what's nice is ecopreneurial businesses are transparent. Try to get that out of General Electric. Transparency is really what it's all about. You want to see how much we're generating with our wind generator, go to our website. All of our data is right there. It's transparency. It's all about sharing what's going on and having folks understand and be able to make a good decision. The other is having fun. I don't know if you folks know this, but bees, when they find a new patch of flowers, actually dance to give a signal of where to go. And a lot of entrepreneurial, ecopreneurial businesses are really, really thriving in that sense of fun. They enjoy doing what they're doing. We don't have TGIFs and we don't have Monday blues. If we don't like what we're doing, we don't do it. And we figured out a way of running the business so that we can create a situation where we don't have to do the things we don't want to do. Unfortunately, we had to do a lot of things we didn't like to do when we were back in the corporate world. So by working for yourself, you can control a lot more of that. The other big idea that is coming up more and more is the idea of looking at everyone here, ourselves included, as people again, as human beings, not consumers. We've let ourselves over the last 20 to 30 years all become consumers, so much so, in fact, I love NPR, but NPR, National Public Radio, still refers to everyone as consumers regularly, regardless of whether you're listening to Marketplace or just their general talk of the nation. It's consumers, and you folks are human beings, you're citizens, global people. We've really allowed ourselves to become a part of this consumption machine, and we need to regain a little bit more control over that. And you can do more of that control in the context of your own business, but it's changing how we work, live, play, and really interact with each other in our own communities. And it's a change of consciousness in work style, in lifestyle, and in spending habits. We're not anti-commerce. In fact, we're all about commerce, but it's mindful commerce. It's that Buddhist idea of thinking mindfully about what you're doing and how you're interacting with other people and the environment, and try to figure out a way of weaving that into both the business, but also the relationships with vendors and customers and such. So we talked a little bit about developing an Earth mission, and it's really an important part of what we're all about as ecopreneurs. It's that springboard from which your business will emanate. It's the hardest thing, and in all of my university training now, all 6 years of it, not one professor or TA.
It was on the 4-year plan, by the way. That was just...
Yeah, no, I even got a master's. No one ever put happiness or any equivalent up on the chalkboard. Somehow that word and that concept was completely omitted from my entire collegiate 6 years plus of education. And we need to rethink about this, because when you go through that, of course, it's just about money, and it's having a nice car and having a big house. And we're getting out of that. Where's the community? Where's my family? Where's the quality of life? Where's the environment in our structure and the things we're thinking about? It respects nature, looks at fair trade, and really come to the acknowledgement that having all this money, what good is a lot of money, when you're 6 feet under or 6 inches under? At the end of your life, what is it? I got all this bank account to give it to all my kids or my family. But what good is that if you've gotten it? You have this sense of a very shallow sense of prosperity in that way. So what ecopreneurs do is use their business to achieve whatever that Earth mission is. All right? I am wearing a Patagonia shirt. Would you believe that their mission is to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis? That's their company. That's a for-profit company. The people that made this shirt. That's their mission. Where does it make? The people are thinking about using profits to accomplish their Earth missions through their business, whether it's for-profit or non-profit or a combination of both. That's the key. Do you love bicycles, as Resource Revival does? They take junk parts. This guy's really into bicycling, so he takes junk parts from bicycles and turns them into doodads. All right, now he still struggles with, well, I'm still in the doodad economy of bottle openers and things like that. But the point is, he's following his mission. He's able to use the profits from his business to create economic opportunity, in this case in a rural area of the United States. He's taking a waste stream that would be in landfills and pulling it out of landfills. And then we'll talk a little bit in brief detail here more about this sense of reuse economy. But we have this incredible abundance and incredible surplus that we're throwing away, we're wasting. So we're trying to regain some of that and tie it back in to it all. So for many ecopreneurs, I should say, is the small is beautiful mantra. And they're feeling, we've all been taught in our schools about ecological niches and different ecological systems. So what do we do in the global free market economy is we're trying to sell this toothpaste to the planet because we're all going to use this kind of toothpaste with this kind of toothbrush. It's turning everyone into a consumer rather than figuring out how to fill an economical niche within your community. You don't need to be huge to make a difference. And that is very contrary to what a lot of economic development companies within different counties are all about. We want to fill up that big, huge, development park, and we need to help create all these jobs. But what kind of jobs are they creating, and what are they doing to the environment or to their community and a part of how they're creating? So it's really rethinking that a little bit. So it's more about better, not bigger. We're just a 2-room, 4-square farmhouse, and there are articles written all over the world about our little 2-room, 4-square farmhouse. It's a bizarre thing, but you can be really better about something and find incredible satisfaction and find economic viability on a small scale if you follow a few tips that we'll get to in a second. And it's a sense of shifting from consumption to collaboration. And this makes a lot of Wall Street Journal people really nervous because no one wants to collaborate because it's all about competition. It's all about dog eat dog. It's all about stepping on your boss to get ahead in the company. And it's a very different environment that ecopreneurs work in. They collaborate, they develop relationships, they barter, they do all these other transactions that don't fit within normal confines. So with that.
So we're going to move on to some of these tips here, again with the idea to spark some ideas and some nuggets of inspiration for everyone. So number one, not surprisingly, go green. The green market is big and growing. Sometimes we hear about this as cultural creatives. That's the name of a book by Ray and Sherry Anderson. But basically we're talking about 50 million people like us. That's a big number and growing. It's the kind of folks, as John mentioned, of consciously buying things, consciously wanting to know where their monies are going. Lifestyles of health and sustainability, sometimes that's referred to as LOHAS, but that's the market we're talking about. And in this case, and this is the kind of thing, if you're looking at some business niches, to take a next step in research, and we've got more information in the book as well, but these are divided into different categories: sustainable economy, healthy lifestyles, ecological lifestyles, alternative healthcare, big area, personal development, the whole life coaching thing. All of that together is equaling a lot of potential new business opportunities. On the travel note, just because that's near and dear to our heart, ecotourism, green travel. People want to stay at a place like ours. That's, as John put it, a little crunchy farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, as my mother still puts it, Wisconsin, because we run on renewable energy, because we serve a really local 100 feet from garden to plate breakfast. That's why. So Travel Green Wisconsin, travelgreenwisconsin.com is the green travel program by our Department of Tourism. Greenroutes.org, and we'll mention these at the end too, is the equivalent in Minnesota, and I'm sure something is cooking in Iowa here because this area is so fast and growing. But we're talking about reducing, reusing, recycling, certified products, as John mentioned with Resource Revival. Is there a waste stream that you're aware of, that you're passionate about? I mean, bike parts, for example, that can be made into something else. Be fossil fuel free. Obviously a theme of this weekend here, but when you're in control of your own business, your own livelihood, there's opportunity to do more with it. First and foremost, from our perspective, work from home. I mean, we talk about reducing our fossil fuel impact income. We basically walk a flight of stairs to our office, or walk down, or walk outside, or bottom line walk. And that makes a huge difference in our impact long term. Energy efficiency and conservation, when we're working from home, we can control those inputs. And we always like to say, if we could give you guys a stock tip, which believe me, if we could, we would, that has a guaranteed 120% return on investment, what would it be? That's the return on compact fluorescence. That was one of the first steps we did when we moved to our 100-year-old farmhouse, is switch all the bulbs. That's the boring stuff. People like to talk about the sexy wind turbine much more. But it's these kind of things that we can control, and big surprise, we haven't replaced any of those since. So that's an income source almost in our business now. Generating your own electricity, there's a variety of options here, obviously. And these are things that plant long term. People look at our farm and let's say, gee, you got the wind, you got the solar, you got the PV. These all evolved over 12 years, and that's what we write about more so in our first book, Rural Renaissance, which talks more about the move from Chicago to our farm. We're not tinkerers, we're not technical, and we obviously don't have these triple-digit incomes to make it all happen. There's a lot of creativity, frugality, and passion in it all, but the bottom line is it can happen. Using renewable energy for heating, depending on your situation, geothermal for new construction, solar thermal, etc. Using biofuels is a new one of ours, of wanting to be completely fossil fuel free. That's our new business goal, and we're achieving it. See that little thing there? That's a 1975 circa city car, which we're restoring for local commuting. And being from Wisconsin and Greene County, where it's land of cheese, we think we're going to enter that in the next Cheese Day parade as like a piece of Gouda. But needless to say, when we're driving this around, we have rightfully earned that reputation as, oh, that interesting couple on County P. But so be it.
Now, I'm going to touch a little bit now on the next two. We all know about the cash economy, and that is the one that we all need to go out and earn money to buy the things that will solve our problems. About 50 years ago, there was the cash economy, yes, but there was a lot of other economies, and in a lot of rural areas, those other economies are still very much alive. It's about a month ago, you had to lock your back door, otherwise you would get zucchini. All right, you have a time when during the holidays, all sorts of things get moved around. Surpluses, canned jars of products get harvested during the summer, services exchanged, no money, just things moved around. So there's a household economy. That's a sense of self-sufficiency and self-reliance, and that's a big theme of ours. Not that we're completely so. In fact, we have a lot of interdependencies with neighbors, but more of that is, from our perspective, a good thing, and that deals with energy and food and even our own child care. When you start not having to pay a utility company and have them start paying you, the economics start looking really good with your small business, and that's exactly the situation we're in now. There's the barter economy. We run a bed and breakfast. Who would like to get away to a bed and breakfast in exchange for helping us fix something on the farm, or help us retile our front porch, or help us fix something on our property that we aren't particularly good at? Guess what? A lot of people would like to do that. We have something they're interested in, they have something we are interested in, and we barter, we hook up, and we make a transaction happen. It has nothing to do with how much money we need to make for that. There's the reuse economy, and Free Cycle and Craigslist are two great resources, especially Free Cycle. If you don't have a Free Cycle in your community, please go out and start one now. It's all internet-based, moving things around. We're on our third microwave that we saved from a landfill sitting around in people's attics and garages. You don't need to go shopping for less when you can get it from someone in your community that has 4 or 5 of them piled up somewhere in their house. And you're going to see a huge transaction taking place very soon with the transition to digital television. All right, there's going to be a lot of available televisions very, very soon. And people are going to be upgrading, and you have an opportunity, if that's where you want to go, to be able to incorporate that in and not have to go out and buy anything. There's the volunteer and gift economy. Like I said, those are still very much thriving in certain parts of the country, certain neighborhoods in larger centers, city centers. But it's getting back to that sense. A cooperative arrangement, too, is where you're a part of a whole group of people that are working together. And there's a huge growth in cooperatively organized enterprises and businesses these days, because it's much easier to share that risk and pull together resources than it is to try to go at it all by yourself. And finally, the harvest economy, which we are also very keen on. If wind and sun are abundant in your area, why not use it to meet all of your energy needs? In the case with wood, if you live in an area where you have lots of woods and you need to harvest certain things in certain ways, or if you have windfalls, it's a great way to tap into that economy more so than we're actually doing. The other area I'm going to talk a little bit about is minding your own business from the standpoint of a tip idea. Can anyone tell me what corporations pay taxes on? It's up there already. Corporations pay taxes on what? Profits. That's what they pay taxes on. A lot of corporations in America, especially over the last 15 to 20 years, are actually figuring out how to pay no taxes because they know how to do real fancy things to get rid of their profits. Now, for folks who have a W-2 and a payroll job, what do you pay taxes on? You get 15% right off the bat. It's called FICA, payroll tax, and then you get an additional income tax. So you get double tax right off the bat, and you can't really control too much of that because you can't do things as an employee that you can do as a business. 82 of the largest U.S. corporations paid absolutely no federal income tax in 2001 to 2003, and actually a report just came out that number is even going up further. And these are big corporations too, like Walt Disney Company, AT&T, Time Warner. Not exactly your small operation. And what these corporations have done, and if you structure your business in such a way, what you will be able to do is reduce your taxable income by using something called a triple net lease. If you're into real estate, purchasing a property, then selling it, and then purchasing another property. And again, you could do this all into a eco mentality of an eco restoration and so forth. But there's something called a 1031 Starker exchange. This is how very, very wealthy people, including most of the people in Washington, D.C., have been able to make their money, is they've been able to keep turning things over and avoid paying any capital gains tax through this little trick that they put in there. There's also depreciation and amortization, and there's all these tricks, and we don't have the time here to talk about them, but we'll have a table later on today, and we're happy to continue to talk today and tomorrow if you're coming into some more of the details of how we do that, and we do cover that a bit in our book. There's also a trend of subcontracting. So let's say you're a graphic designer. You can be an employee of a company and get paid something and have all this stuff deducted, or you could be a subcontractor doing exactly the same thing, but then this time you're getting paid by the job and you get all of that money, and then you can decide what you want to do with that money rather than someone else deciding for you what to do with that money. It's a different way of structuring things. And ultimately what we do is our profits support, just like we talked about, our Earth mission. So when we have a good year, we take that money and invest in an all-electric city car. Yes, we don't own that. JDI Enterprises, our business owns that car, which we then can depreciate at $700 a year. So we can make $700 of revenue to the business that gets offset by this phantom expense as a part of our business. It's all these things, and this is all we're trying to do, is just tap that into that and doing it in the context of your business to be able to make it work better. So it's just kind of a real quick example. You have $35,000 of employee of Killer Corporation transforming human and natural capital into wealth for just a few shareholders. All right. This is a rough approximation, but maybe you'll come out with maybe $19,750 at the end of the year. Now, if you take that same $35,000 and figure out how to do it in the context of business revenues, and really focusing on this restoration economy and thinking about how you're interacting with things, you're earning revenues for the owners, but you can do things that we talked about just briefly, to where you're going to end up with $33,000 at the end of the year. That is how a 41-year-old has managed with his wife and his son to pay off the farm in less than a decade and a few years. Because we figured out how to work the numbers so that we have a little bit more money ourselves to do things that we really want to do that mean a lot to us and that restores nature and gets us involved in a different way in our community. So on that $35,000 income, you live to work and earn a living. And for most folks who are doing this, it's hard to keep up. You can't. Because, you know, I just heard natural gas is going to go up 30%. I don't know about anyone around here, but most folks who have payroll are not seeing a 30% bonus coming to them anytime soon. And if you happen to carry a mortgage, you're paying bank one. You own a car on a loan, you're paying bank two, and if you happen to have too many credit cards, you're paying bank three. So now all you're doing is you're working to pay all these people. And the result is we have a national savings rate. Anyone know when the last time that happened? During the Great Depression. Now we're living in the Great Depression financially, and yet most of us don't even talk about it from that standpoint yet, because but George says that there's no recession. What are you guys talking about? So the reality is we're hearing these stories, but they're being woven to support the people who are in control of this. If you run your own business, you can make a life and have a good life. You can live richly, but we're not income-wise very wealthy, and we take those revenues to make the world a better place. And it's a shift in how we do things. We have invested in renewable energy systems and taken advantage of tax credits and depreciation. We've looked at sustainable transport and done sort of the same thing. So it's using the business as that catalyst to make those changes.
And that's a big idea. If anybody, your head's kind of buzzing, believe me, it took us years, and it's what prompted us to write the ECOpreneuring book, to flesh that out a bit more, because I was raised in very much a traditional immigrant household where dad worked for the state for 40 years and got paychecks, and that's just what you do. But is it working? And can we rethink that? And that's what the goal of all of this is about. So a couple more ideas we've been talking about already.
Nothing we're doing is illegal.
Oh, I forgot.
In fact, we even report, if we get like a $5 tip from B&B guests, we actually stick that on the deposit form. $5 tip from B&B. We report it. Nothing is illegal here. This is just how these structures are set up. And again, in business school, they didn't teach me this. He just told me what kind of power suit to wear. It's just a different mode.
All right, so keeping it local. We've been talking about the localized economy and this has a lot to do with obviously fossil fuel issues, but more importantly, community building, joining that small mart revolution. Anytime we need anything, we check out all of our local sources first. In many cases, most cases, they turn out either more economical, but definitely much higher value when it comes to building community. Buying local, selling local, doing business with the neighbors, keeping more money circulating in the community, and sometimes these things go into those other economies that John was talking about of bartering and reusing and all of that. Rethinking retirement. This is probably one of the biggest questions we get asked from B&B guests around the campfires. Well, what are you guys going to do when you retire? And I finally figured I had to come up with an answer to that. So it's like, all right, we're going to join a CSA. All right, we're going to plow under the 2 acres and garden. I'm just going to kick back and let the young kids do it. Because the point of it is we love what we do. I don't see retirement as this end goal. And I'm sure we all have, if not, people in our family, I know our own family, where they work and work to get to what they want to do. And when they get there, they're too old or too tired or too crabby, as in my family's case, but that's another Estonian story. You can't do it. And we didn't want to be in that situation, and we didn't want to project that image to our son. So how can you rethink these things? I'm arguing probably most people here don't really see their retirement as floating around on a boat. How can you plan creatively for your senior years? This has to do with all sorts of ways of managing your money, both green but strategically. And there's things, like the reverse mortgages, these rental incomes. A whole lot more reliable as a form of investment than some of, the IRA dealings, IRS. What are those things called? IRAs. Excuse me. See, I've been out of that loop. John manages the money around us. Is Social Security really secure? We could debate this one around the campfire as well, but I think we'd all net out that the answer, unfortunately for a lot of people, is no. People who are relying on that, how can you take charge of this? And again, who wants to be the richest person in the cemetery? The other question we get asked a lot after the retirement one is, well, what about health care? Okay. Complex question, multi-leveled answer. But the bottom line is, the better you feel about your life, big surprise, the better health you're in. Controlling schedule, prioritizing fitness, getting to the gym in our case, eating better, growing our own food, all add up to a better quality of life. Now that said, okay, still the logistics of healthcare in the structure we live. Personally, we've done a variety of things. We've had no health insurance, we've done self-employed plans, we've done independent contract work for different companies, different businesses that paid our health insurance. Right now, because our income, again, we're keeping it low, we can tap into our state-sponsored health care program, which in Wisconsin is called Badger Care. Qualifies if you have kids. It's under the Medicare umbrella. But this is income-based. Right now, we're getting better insurance coverage for working families, as it's defined, than we ever did working at the corporation. There's options, is the bottom line. And again, we've probably all seen it too much. I know we have in our circle of peers, of people who are working, doing things they hate because they need to have the health insurance because someday they might get sick. It's a bizarre equation that we've come to live under. Importantly, too, for us under that issue of healthcare and home care is family integration and integrating your home, your life, your livelihood, what you do with your family. That's a very important part of our own philosophy. I mean, when our son Liam, it's not, he does these kind of things. He passes out the sheets, he helps, he brings the muffins to the table, and then he goes to play Legos because he's 6. That's part of the job of being 6, but how can we do that? Failing fast and intelligently, again, something they don't teach you in business school and college, but that idea to get out some ideas and try them. Keep them small. If you've got 4 ideas that are burning in the back of your mind, try them all on a small basis and don't, necessarily take the next 4 years to figure out which is the big idea. Innovate or die, learn by experiment. We've got the societal perception that failure is bad, and it is not, especially in these situations like we're talking about with an ecopreneurship where we're in an evolving economy. Knowledge and information society, there's a lot of things going on tangibly now that you can do from anywhere by sharing your knowledge. We do it somehow through the written word in books, or you could do it in different ways through website designs or communication portals or blogs. This innovation economy, clean tech, green tech breakthroughs, durable economy where there is no waste, service economy where there are no products. The rules are changing, bottom line. And some of these traditional business books you read, the bed and breakfast books, go look at one at Borders and flip to like startup. And I think the going estimate by the Bed and Breakfast Association is $15,000 per room. I think if you take out 3 decimal points and you go like $5.99, that's what we started each of our rooms on. We started our bed and breakfast. The only thing new we purchased were mattresses. Everything else was reused, recycled, sitting in someone's closet. A little elbow grease, a little refinishing. You don't need a lot to start something.
And sometimes it works out, you know, this wabi-sabi thing is now hot. You know, where you kind of piece things together and make it look kind of funky, and so we're the funky bed.
Yeah, we've always been the distressed look before it was hip, but you know, it's all right. It's part of our philosophy, and hopefully we'll be able to share it with you guys sometime in person. Traveling and garnering experiences, this is a big part of our own personal philosophy, is we got to get out there and see new things, see how other people do it. Ecotourism, the green economy, more than just sitting on a beach. It's interesting, when we were in a job situation, that's what we were dreaming of, is those times we could sit on the beach and do nothing. Now it's a different equation of how can we get somewhere, how can we come here for the weekend, which is part of our business, but you know, the B&B is closed at home, but we're coming away with tons of ideas, meeting folks like yourselves and sharing the ideas, restoring, preserving, enhancing community, and importantly, working travel into the business. I mean, you know, every time we go anywhere just about related to the business, we write down the miles in our car. Liam reminds us, did you write down the miles? All of a sudden, if you're doing something from a green perspective, you're driving a more fuel-efficient car. Well, what did you say the going standard was now?
58.5 cents per mile to use your personal car for business purposes. We drive a Volkswagen TDI diesel Jetta. If you drive a Prius, you are now probably making about 24 cents a mile profit. Although you don't call it that because you're just reimbursing yourself for the use of your personal car for your business.
But
the point is, it's these escalating realities of what it is, because 50% of all the vehicles, something thereabouts, are vans, SUVs, and pickup trucks, or larger sport utility kind of things. So the rates are what they are, and if you're smarter, you can use the system to your advantage, and then, so Lisa and John reimburse ourselves about $2,000 to $3,000, maybe even $4,000 a year for business use of our car, for business. Now, we have to do it where we have legitimate business we're doing. I mean, this is not, again, about cooking the books. That will lead to Enron. The point is, well, we're trying to use those things that we have to serve our Earth mission, and then that $3,000 to $4,000 is money that flows back through, and then Lisa and I can pay down our mortgage with that money. See, it's just rethinking things in a different sort of way.
And importantly, defining the good life on your terms. We've shared a little bit of our own personal values and philosophies, but this is very important for you to define on your own. You know, where are you place-based? What defines your quality of life? What defines true health for you and well-being? But in a nutshell, I think we're all talking that these things cannot be achieved by a fat bank account. They're not based on money. They're based on things beyond that. And to get that dialogue going and to start talking about a currency that's based on satisfaction, on meaning, on friendship, on meaningful work, on being able to work with your spouse on a daily basis. Maybe you guys work with your spouse? No? We joke about it. You know, it's one of these situations where, like, sexual harassment is not only not illegal, it's like our employee motivation plan on the farm. But, you know, it works for us. We didn't have this master plan when we met out of college that this is what it was going to be. But when you're like that, when you're so integrated on a daily basis with the people that you love, it works, and it connects you in ways you never thought about before, and in some ways you really don't want to think about again. But it works for us, and that's a big part of our story. And if it's things you would like to see in your own life down the line, again, as John mentioned, we're hanging out. We got in the exhibit booth there, and we'll be around tomorrow too. We're happy to talk more about this, or ask Liam for his opinion. That'd be even more interesting. Some resources to wrap up with. Ecosector.com. This is off of the ECOpreneuring.biz website. It's a partnership we've set up for you to share your story. Go on tomorrow night and put something on there. Just your idea, your dream, what you are. This idea is to create connections with other people, other resources. CoopAmerica.org is the Green Business Network, probably the oldest and biggest now, green pages. Flip through that, see what people are doing around the country, ask questions amongst people in other areas. The Midwest Renewable Energy Association, based in Rockin, Wisconsin, has a number of educational resources from the renewable energy standpoint. And if you like this fair, we want to personally invite you to come to the MREA Fair next June in Stevens Point in Wisconsin, largest in the world, 20,000 people. Greenoptions.com, that's a green portal that both John and I do blogging for, but it's a very practical resource for going green. They've got 15 different sites ranging from these ECOpreneuring topics to eating topics that I write on. RenewingTheCountryside.org. Renewing the Countryside is a Minnesota-based nonprofit that we work a lot with that focuses on rural issues, rural revitalization issues. And we write a lot of profiles, in this case, of rural diversified businesses. Some farm, but typically, like us, that's not all they do. They've got llamas, they've got bed and breakfast, they've got wind turbines. So this is meant to be stories that you can read online and other resources as well. to get you going. And the books I mentioned, ECOpreneuring, goes into more of the issues we're talking about now. Rural Renaissance is our personal story with also practical resources for greening, sustainable living. Edible Earth, and if anyone's around tomorrow, I'll be talking more on the food side tomorrow morning for Organic Eating on a Dime. That's our bed and breakfast cookbook, real simple, seasonal vegetarian books. Eating, and Renewing the Countryside, Wisconsin is a book we worked on with Renewing the Countryside, showcasing 39 of these rural stories in Wisconsin. But we've got these books here for special Energy Fair discounts, and we don't want to take them home, so please come in.
And if you'd like to potentially visit us, we have donated a room for donation here for the silent auction. So this is, again, it's out of the normal realm of how people interact. We've donated the room. Any money you end up giving to them to potentially win it all goes to the I Renew folks. So it's a great win-win, and one of the copies of our books will be a part of that donation. So if you, I guess they're only doing the silent auction today, not tomorrow, so this is your one and only shot at it.
I don't know.
Yeah, Liam promises to have a good campfire. We might even be spinning, well, I won't say we're spinning fire, but we'll definitely be spinning poi by the time you get there. It's this newfangled New Zealand form of entertainment that we picked up on. But
That's another story.
we have a few minutes for 1 minute, huh?
We can do a story. To just, in summary, to share a story with you, John was walking in the farm the other day. Come on, dear. This is your big moment. He was walking down the farm. We live on, 5 acres, small farm, when all of a sudden he looks behind him and he sees 2 tigers chasing him. He said, that's peculiar. I know we have garlic mustard as exotic species. I didn't know we have wild tigers, but they were chasing him, so he starts to run. When, sure enough, we live in the rolling green hills of Wisconsin, but all of a sudden there was this 200-foot drop that wasn't there yesterday. That's peculiar, he said, but he looked back and the tigers were still coming. He said, I need to do something. What am I going to do? I think he screamed for his wife for help, but I was obviously preoccupied. So he said, I'm going to resolve this problem. He looks down, there's a little branch, maybe a foot down, before the 200-foot drop. He said, I'll hold on to that, and the tigers won't get me. I'll be 200 feet from the ground, but at least I'll be alive, right? So he holds onto the branch, and he's holding on. The tigers are chewing above, when all of a sudden, speaking of chewing, he notices 2 mice chewing on the branch. It's looking better and better all the time. I think this is the part now where he blames his wife, but he moves on quickly, and then he sees, past the mice, there's a strawberry growing, which are, of course, no longer in season. Sometimes I get a good visual aid here from the garden, but there's this beautiful red strawberry growing on the vine. It's perfect. And he says, maybe if I reach far enough, I'll get the strawberry. So he does, and he eats it, and it's delicious. It's the best strawberry he ever had in his life. Okay, well, you kind of can get the short ending of the story, and it's not particularly good. And I particularly bastardize, actually, a very beautiful Zen folk tale, but the meaning of all of this is that the tigers are death and the mice are time. And they're both going to get us eventually. Death's going to catch up with us, and the time is going to eventually fall off as well. There's only so much of it. And the point is, eat the strawberry. There's something here today. There's something here at this moment that is beautiful and ripe and delicious, and to enjoy it and eat it and savor it and live it. And that's the message we'd like to leave with you guys and share this weekend is what's that strawberry? What's that thing right here, right now that can really bring joy and to go after it? Because everything else is going to happen, trust me. Or at least they tell me. I don't know. That's the going rumor. So on that note, again, thank you guys very, very much. And we can take a couple questions. And again, we're happy to hang out the afternoon and ask Talk Chat as well. Oh, thank you. Did anybody have any? Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you do consulting.
Consulting?
Yeah. I mean, if you since you're in business, then do you help other people set up their businesses?
Most of our consulting, if you will, is around our campfire, drinking the Kahlua in our cookbook. I mean, we're real passionate about helping people do that. That's where the B&B helps as an outlet. I mean, coming to things like this, and through the written word is more of our outreach. So yeah, we're happy to do anything we can to help create the movement, but we do that, for Kahlua. I'm kidding. We do that most gratefully and graciously.
We're happy to consult if you want to come by over at our table there. We got to let the next group in here.
Chocolate. I work for chocolate. Thank you guys very much.